Please let me, for obvious reasons, as you can see, I'm not as tall as Monguno. Let me please stand on existing protocols. I'm going to do very quickly. I will not read my review in full, largely because time is already gone. But look, in this book, I see three sides of the brain of General Irabo. The first is maybe based on where he comes from. You know, all that Agbo, Ogwashuku, Asaba, Ibuzo area, it's a deeply Catholic environment. So, and one side of his brain, I suspect, has very deep Catholic content, and that comes across towards the end of the book. Then you have the military component, which speaks about the issues that are in the book. Then, of course, you have the intellectual component, which takes about 150 pages of the book, which is literally like reading the book by a professor of political science. I think that the sentiments that have been expressed, and General Monguno, like I said to you, 2 years ago, I published a book titled Nigeria's Elusive Quest for National Cohesion. And it's a collection of about 16 or 17 of convocation lectures I delivered across the length and breadth of Nigeria. What struck me, I never delivered one lecture twice, but what struck me when I was putting the papers together was that for over 10 years, I'd literally been obsessed with the theme of national cohesion. So you strike the point. That's why I said I'll keep clapping until you arrive. Now, this book, the first perhaps 100 and so chapters, the problem I had with the book is that it's actually only yesterday that I saw a copy of the book. General Irabo sent me the electronic copy. Unfortunately, the electronic copy, for economic reasons, because I'm a priest, I didn't want to waste too much of my money. So I reduced the type font. And that meant the pages were also severely reviewed. So in my review, my pages are not the same with the pagination in the book. Last night, I tried to review my review up till about midnight. And then I thought, should I go and start looking at the pages? It got too tedious, so I stopped. Anyway, this book is 285 pages. And President Obasanjo has already made the point on page 4 in italics when he said, I am hopeful that this contribution to the body of knowledge will serve as a value addition to the process of peace, security, and development of Nigeria. Everything else in the book is literally a detail. Now, the book has 14 chapters, and the 14 chapters are divided into 3 sections. The first section is titled The Ghost That Lives in Us. And then the second part is the Boko Haram conundrum. And the third part is titled I Set on Tomorrow, which for me is perhaps the most important part of the book. Because not only is it futuristic, it admits the broken dreams of Nigeria. It admits all the mistakes that have been made, but tries to point at a picture. And when you read the book, you will see that General Irabo is not talking now with military arrogance about what the military has done, but he talks about the issues, the soft issues that we need to become a more humane society. Because I think he admits also in the book that Boko Haram, and I think it's a philosophical question, but it's also an intellectual question we can debate. Namely, is Boko Haram a cause or is it an effect? Is it a reaction to the brokenness, for the broken dreams, to all the convoluted environment that has been created in Nigeria in the last 60 years? How did we dredge up this group of human beings? They didn't come from another planet. They are our children, our grandchildren, and so on and so forth. So the author goes through all of this, and then I think he opens the book by telling a story. And I think what I felt when I read the book was, I thought, before I even started reading the book, that this will be a book about strategy, about plan, about all the gara-gara, all the shooting, all the plotting, but it's a completely different book that you can read very comfortably on a chair. But the first thing that struck me was when the general said he decided to visit his troops. And thank God that General Irabo is, as you can see him, slim, athletic, obviously not a very heavy man. Because when he got to his soldiers, it was very easy for them. They lifted him up with excitement. I mean, this broke military protocol. But I think just to tell you, this is the chief of general staff. He arrives, and these soldiers are so excited to see him that they lifted him up. And he said, and I quote, "The soldiers seized and carried me high, as if I had injected them with doses of oxytocin, I don't know what that is, that could make them pursue Boko Haram with bare hands. And then shortly after that, he encounters the soldiers. And then he looks around, and then he poses a more complicated question, because not a solution, because he's asking himself. Again, he says, how did we get here? What has gone wrong? Who will tell the political class of the despicable conditions of our forces? What remedies exist? Will this ever end? This is on page 4 of the book. And then right there, he admitted that the foundations upon which independent Nigeria was created as a political entity failed the test of national unity and cohesion. Page 23. The psalmist in the book of Psalms, Psalm 11, verse 3 says, foundations once destroyed, what can the righteous do? So the very fact that Nigeria continues to go one step forward, 3 steps backwards, 1 step forward, 3 steps backwards, and we are unable to resolve the issues that we started out with, suggests, and that is answered in chapter 2. When the general now says, the title is, When the Shield Becomes the Sword. Quite a contradiction. How can a shield that is meant to protect you become the sword? And he says, in talking about Nigeria's fractured history, talking about the military coup, he says, and I quote, the author admits that the 1966 coup is a very sensitive issue because it has created myths, rumors, conspiracy theories around the origins and the plot of its victims. The coup, which was intended as a shield against post-independence political leadership failures, became the sword of chaos. So if you are looking for what is wrong in Nigeria and why Nigeria is still not working today, January 1966 is the scene of the crime. And for policemen, intelligence people who are involved in crime scene investigation, when you contaminate a crime scene, you lose evidence. Nigeria has refused, one, to return to the crime scene. And even when they've returned to the crime scene, they've become hesitant. And I think this is the point that our brother, the former NSA, has made. Now, the author goes on to talk about the Boko Haram conundrum. Now, the good thing about the book is that it doesn't discuss the theology of Boko Haram, which is a subject for another day. But he makes the point, even if it is in passing, about the circumstances, social, economic, political, that brought about this. And I will speak to it towards the end of my presentation. But please, let us not forget, in all this conversation about Boko Haram, and I think this is where the Nigerian government has gotten it wrong. First of all, let's not forget, we are the ones who gave them the name Boko Haram. They didn't say that they are Boko Haram. We are the ones who gave them the name. And because we gave them the name Boko Haram, we have become comfortable. It has affected our strategy. And that is why we're focusing on, they say the no-like book, that the education, Western education is, but if you go back, and I've done a little bit of research on Boko Haram for quite some time. My brother and the director of the Kukah Center, Father Barkindo, here, his PhD thesis at the prestigious School of Oriental and African Studies was on Boko Haram. They've done extensive translations of the kind of things that Boko Haram was talking about. And until you access the kind of thing Boko Haram was talking about, you are shooting at the wrong board. Because the question which the chairman raised as to how 15 years later we are unable to resolve this issue means that you cannot cast out a devil that you have not named. Boko Haram says their name is Jama'atu Ali Sunnah Leader, Awati wal Jihad. That is their name. If you can't pronounce it, too bad. Because if you call me John, I won't answer. If you call me Philip, I won't answer. Even if I commit a crime and you took me to court and you try me and you secure a conviction, and you spell my name Matthew with 1 T, I can argue that this is not my Matthew. So we are calling them Boko Haram, but they have told you this is their name. And the English translation is that people committed to the prophet's teachings for the propagation of jihad. That's what is in their blood. So no matter how many bullets you shoot them with, and I will come to that point, They have told you this is what they are committed to. And in fairness to all of us, including those of us who are in this room, is there any Muslim who will say is not committed to the teachings of the Holy Prophet? The challenge is what context of preaching. Now, the author talks about the irony of Boko Haram. That is in chapter 6. And he addresses a lot of issues in chapter 6 and chapter 7, which also catalog the forces that led to the destruction. The federal government college in Buniyadi, the kidnappings in Chibok, Dapchi, the destruction of infrastructure such as the UN building in Abuja, assassinations of people like Jafar Adam in Kano, and so on. Now, the issue of Leah Sharibu and the Chibok girls, these are what the author refers to as the scars. And in my view, as long as Leah Sharibu is unaccounted for, as long as any of the abducted children in Nigeria is unaccounted for, every child that is unaccounted for is a scar on the face of Nigeria. So the point that the author makes, and I think that one of the mistakes, when this whole thing started, I published an article, I think it was in The Guardian, and the title of my article was Bread, Not Bullets. And I was trying to make a point, to point out to the government of Nigeria that these issues require they don't require bullets. But from day one, fighting Boko Haram became a military operation. And because it was a military operation, fighting an idea, we have had problems with identifying the nature of the forces. And what is very interesting for me, I've not read military doctrine. But military doctrine is part of the propaganda machinery of the military. General Agwe is here, so I will not go too far on that regard. But you listen to the Nigerian military, they've had Operation Lafi Adole, that is wellness by force. Okay? How can you make Lafia by force? But we have Operation Lafi Adole, Operation Flush, Operation Restore Order, Operation Hadankai, Operation Zaman Lafia, Operation Rawankada, Operation Amni Fakad, Operation Yanchin Tafki, Operation Sharam Fege, Operation Lake Sanity, and so on and so forth. One operation fails, the late Patrick Itiwe of blessed memory. So when he came to, when the Northern Regional Government decided to bring all these Indians and Pakistanis after the Civil War. So many of them came. Some of them were hospital attendants, but they came to Nigeria as medical doctors. So Patrick Itiwe, because for Nigeria, if you see skin color, many of us, if you go to hospital now, many of my friends who have gone to London, they go to what's it called, the name of that street in London. But I imagine, and I'm not going into that detail, but just saying, because we're dealing with textual evidence. If Operation Dole didn't succeed, why did we think Operation Hadankai will succeed? If it didn't succeed, why? These are questions. But once we turn Boko Haram into a military, you foreclose the possibilities of information. And what if you didn't understand, if Boko Haram is fighting a jihad, you are saying Lafi Adole, Boko Haram is saying Mutu Adole. You are fighting, hoping to go. Some people are fighting a jihad, and there have been angels that are waiting for them in paradise. So they are waiting to die.